Beginning now the Satsang session of 12th May 1985, continuing Savitri, Book 3, Canto 3.
In the omnipotent peace, thought clashes not with thought, and truth with truth, as they do in our world of limitations and ignorance. Because our thoughts are not coordinated amongst themselves, and we always oppose my truth to your truth. So there is always a clash of partial truths, which is not the case in that state of omniscient and omnipotent peace where Ashwapati has arrived. There is no war of right with rival right. The same idea. Each is right, but they don't confront each other. There is understanding and not conflict. There are no stumbling and half-seeing lives passing from chance to unexpected charms. Each person's lives, they do not stumble about, unsure of their direction, unsure of their goal, as they do at our level of existence, half-seeing. Our lives are half blind, and in a certain sense our lives move from one chance to another chance, and chances are always unexpected. No suffering of hearts compelled to beat in bodies of inert, inconscience make. In the bodies at our grade of existence, which are made from an inconscient base, the hearts suffer because of the pull of inconscience below and the conflict between their upward aspirations and the downward pulls they suffer, and still they are obliged to be in these bodies, obliged to throb and beat, but not there. And what's the state of things there? Armed with the immune, occult, unsinking fire, the guardians of eternity keep its law. The guardians of eternity, the gods, the higher gods, maintain the law of truth, and their armor, their weapons are the unsinking fire, fire which does not get extinguished at all, as the material fire does, occult. It is not patent to the eye, immune immune to outer invasions. Fire is that intense heat of aspiration, the sheer will as described in the Vedas. And what do? The guardians of eternity? They fix the law upon truth's giant base. The law is based on truth. Because law, what is law? Law is the working of a truth, the application of a truth. And truth is the base. Law comes afterwards, forever fixed upon truth's giant base, in her magnificent and termless home. In the home of truth, termless, boundless, magnificent, the magnificent and boundless home of truth. In that home there is the giant base of truth. There nature on her dumb spiritual couch. Dumb means immutable, unspeaking. Here nature has a material couch, there it has a spiritual couch, bed, immutably transcendent, not involved, but above everything, unshaken, knows her source, and to the stir of multitudinous worlds ascends unmoved in a perpetual calm. Nature has that transcendent poise, and established as she is in a perpetual calm, she gives her consent, she gives her assent to the movement, to the stir, to the vibratory movement of multitudinous worlds. That is, one nature supports, sanctions the movement of the multiplicity of worlds. And when nature is doing that, the witness, the spirit, all causing, all sustaining, and aloof. That's the characteristic of the spirit. It is the origin of all. It supports all, and at the same time it is aloof, not helplessly involved. All causing, all sustaining, and aloof, the witness looks from his unshaken poise. All this stir of the worlds doesn't agitate, doesn't shake his poise. An eye immense, regarding all things done. It is what is described in the Upanishad, that prajna chakshuhu, the eye of wisdom, the eye of intelligence. It regards all things that move, and in the very act of regarding, in the very act of look, it supports. That regard itself is the sanction, without which the movement would come to a standstill. Apart At peace above creation stir. The poet has described nature, poet has described the witness spirit, and now he comes to Ashwapati. He says, apart, at peace above creation stir, immersed in the eternal altitudes, heights, peaks of existence. He abode, he lived, defended in his shoreless self, boundless, unlimited self. That is his fortress, companioned only by the all-seeing one. His only companion is the one Spirit, the Supreme God. A mind too mighty to be bound by thought. His mind now has exceeded the reach of thought. It can't be limited by thought. A life too boundless for the plain space. It can't confine itself to movement in space. A soul without borders, unconvinced of time. That is, a soul without limits. Supposing it is in a body, the body itself acts as a boundary. But when the soul is in its supreme consciousness of identity with the Spirit, in spite of the body, it feels boundless, unconvinced of time. That is, time is irrelevant to it. The compulsions of time do not exist for the soul, and that is why it is not convinced that time really exists. Such a person, that is Ashwapati, he felt the extinction of the world's long pain. The world's long-standing pain, he feels it has been extinguished. He became the unborn self that never dies. He joined the sessions of infinity. Sessions of infinity, gatherings, just as we have meetings. The infinity also has concentrations, gatherings, and he joined them. And on the cosmic murmur, primal loneliness fell, because the murmur of cosmos below was reaching, but it was silence. The primal, the original, the primitive, the first loneliness, aloneness, fell on the cosmic murmur. Annulled was the contact formed with time-born things. His was naturally a long-standing contact with things manifested or born in time. Now that contact was annulled, cancelled. Empty grew nature's wide community, the large world, community of worlds. For him it grew empty. All things were brought back to their formless seed. The state that was in a seed condition, when things had not yet been organized, manifested, but were held in a seed form. Now, all things in his consciousness were condensed in their formless seed. form has not yet come to be. The world was silent for a cyclic hour. An hour does not mean here 60 minutes. Cyclic. When you complete a cycle, it is an hour. Now, how long it was and what in terms of which time, we do not know. We can say for a while. The world was silent for a cyclic hour. Although the afflicted nature he had left maintained beneath him her broad, numberless fields, he had moved away from nature in her affliction, nature in distress. But because he had left, nature could not cease to be. That nature may not exist for him, but for herself, nature continued, maintained her broad, numberless fields, fields of movement, fields of manifestation. Still, as far as he was concerned, her enormous act of existence, act of movement, receding, falling back, failed, remote, as if a soulless dream at last had ceased, as if a dream which had no life in it, which was somehow there, had at last ceased. So to his consciousness, nature, in spite of all her movements, acts, ceased like a dream. If below him nature ceased, no voice came down from the high silences. From above, where all was silent, nothing came down. None answered from her desolate solitudes, from solitudes, empty vastnesses. Not vastness, yes, vastnesses of nature. No voice came from below, and none answered from above, and none answered from below. No voice came down from the high silences, none answered from her desolate solitudes of nature. A stillness of cessation reigned. Stoppage. That stillness of stoppage prevailed. The wide immortal hush before the gods were born. Once again, there is that hush, not the hush of death, but the hush of immortality, which was before the gods were born. You would recollect the first expression was before the gods awake. Here it says, hush before the gods were born. Because once the gods were born, the whole movement started. Before that, there is a pregnant hush, full of promise, full of the immortal ring, immortal breath. A universal force awaited, and in the background of this hush, some universal force awaited, mute, silent. What did it wait for? The veiled transcendence ultimate decree, the sanction, the word of the will of the transcendent behind the veil. The force would not act unless the order was given by the ultimate decree of the transcendent. At this stage, when all is in a hush, when the universal force itself is waiting for the supreme decree, then suddenly there came a downward look from above, as if something is seeing down, a feeling of a look. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. Imagine this sea. It is looking down into its own depths to see what is there, what is the state. Similarly, the infinite extension is looking below. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. A living oneness widened at its core. The oneness that is there, it started widening. At its center, it started widening and joined him. It claimed him, Ashwapati, to unnumbered multitudes. He was no longer allowed to be one, alone. That oneness widened and joined him to unnumbered multitudes. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame white love, pure love, caught all into a soul immense embrace. The whole manifestation was caught into an immense embrace by bliss, by light, by power, by love. Existence found its truth on oneness breast. The multiple creation, the multitudinous universe found its key of truth on the breast of oneness. That is, the many found their base in the one, and each became the self and space of all. As a result of this many finding their oneness, each person, each form became the self of all, became the space of all. That is, each contained everything else. Each became the center of everything else. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of one soul. The world rhythms, the revolutions that keep the worlds going, they are now realized to be the heartbeats of one soul, God. To feel was a flame discovery of God. A single feeling related you immediately to God. Through each feeling, you discovered God. Flame discovery, luminous discovery. All mind was a single harp of many strings. There are innumerable minds, but all together was experienced as one harp which has in many strings. So one mind distributed over in a million forms. All life a song of many meeting lives. all lives met in harmony, in unison, in one universal life. For worlds were many, but the self was one. Though the worlds were so many, one realized that the self of all the worlds was the same and one. This knowledge of oneness, holding all, of many, coming from one, this knowledge was now made a cosmos seed. It was made the seed of a whole new cosmos. For Ashwapati's experience, he experiences the cosmos in a different way, in a different context, in a different context. The universe doesn't register him in the same way as it does to everybody else on earth. So he says, this knowledge of the one and the many was now made a cosmos seed. This seed was cased in the safety of the light. It needed not a sheath of ignorance. This seed of knowledge did not need a protective coat of ignorance as it does at our level. It was cased in the safety of the light, luminous. Then from the trance of the tremendous clasp of the knowledge of one, awareness of one, and from the throbbings of that single heart, and from the naked spirit's victory, bare, nude, unattached spirit, a new and marvelous creation rose. He sees rising an altogether new and wonderful creation. Incalculable, outflowing infinitudes. He is describing the character of the new creation. Incalculable, outflowing infinitudes, laughing out an unmeasured happiness. They exude an immeasurable happiness, lived. That is why he says innumerable unity. Worlds where the being is unbound and wide, bodied unthinkably the egoless self. The worlds embodied the self without the ego. Rapture of beatific energies, join time to the timeless, poles of a single joy. Time and timelessness, they are two poles of a single joy. White vasts were seen, where all is wrapped in all. White vastitudes, infinities were seen, where all is filled in all is covered in all. There were no contraries, no opposites, no sundered parts, no broken parts. All by spiritual links were joined to all and bound indissolubly to the one. Nothing could be fragmented, nothing could be cut out. Each was unique, each form, each thing was special, had it something special of its own, and yet took all lives as its own. It did not stand out from everything else. In spite of its speciality, it took all lives as its own, and following out these tones of the infinite, recognized in himself the universe. Each person following these vibrations, these notes of the infinite, recognized in himself the whole universe. So even the unique took all lives as its own. This was the example set by the infinite, and each person following these tones recognized in himself the universe. I think we should stop. And I have an announcement to make. I have to go out for a while this week, and we will be meeting again next Thursday, the 23rd.